Hello again, everyone. Thanks so much for joining us for this Wednesday's edition of Alaska Weather on the 13th day of October 2021. I'm Dave Percy, meteorologist with the National Weather Service, and I'll be hosting today's show. Up first, hazardous weather graphics. Still have a winter weather advisory out for tonight for the eastern Arctic coast for blowing snow, areas of blowing snow. Reducing visibility is reduced to a half mile at times in blowing snow, and winds gusting to 30 miles an hour. And that's out again for the overnight period tonight. Should end by tomorrow morning. And no other watches, warnings, or advisories out around the state for the next day or so. So moving on to satellite imagery. You can see moisture continues to roll into the southeast coast there, although out to the west, kind of cutting off. So it should be lightening up. Looks like another development taking place there. With that band south of Kodiak Island, and that'll probably develop into another system and move up to the northeast, bring some more rain in, but it'll be lighter than what you've seen. Winds will be also lighter, but more or less staying in a wet weather pattern there. And clouds up over the northeast interior, bringing some areas of very light snow, mostly cloudy skies, but amounts quite light up there. Still gusty east winds, 30 miles an hour, dead horse on the eastern Arctic coast. Then the Bering Sea, northern Bering Sea, a lot of cloudiness up there with weakening low pressure. And snow showers, St. Lawrence Island, Seward Peninsula, light snow showers down into the lower Yukon River Valley area. And southwest interior, seeing some scattered snow showers. Also Pribilof Islands, gusty northwest winds, colder air drop down out of the Russian Far East. And snow, wet snow falling, temperatures just above freezing, or in the lower to mid 30s there for the Pribilofs today. And kind of mixing back and forth between rain and snow there with not any accumulation on the ground, and gusty winds across the Alaska Peninsula up to 40 miles an hour at Port Heiden today for peak wind gusts, and about 35 miles an hour at Cape Newenham. They're coming down, and Kodiak Island kind of in the clear there, not much in the way of clouds. They were early on, but that moved off to the east, and saw a few breaks in the sky, or the overcast there with some sunshine back in toward Bristol Bay, and some small breaks up over the interior there, central Yukon River Valley area. You can see a little more expansive out toward the Kobuk Valley and the northwest coastal areas. Seeing some clearing skies as well. Otherwise, a weak system coming into the western Bering Sea, very weak. Just a weak trailing edge of a front dragging across Shimia there, and most of that energy staying to the north of the Aleutians, and looks like some more clouds about ready to move into the Pribilofs. On the chart, looks a lot more oppressive here with the frontal boundary drawn in than it actually is there, with that system out to the west, and then the tighter gradient and northwest winds for the Alaska Peninsula, and the mixture of rain or snow. Any elevation at all over the southwest interior, and you're looking at snowfall, and really during the late afternoon hours, it kind of mixing in areas there, and some light precipitation over southern Cook Inlet, North Gulf Coast, and frontal system actually now moving through the Panhandle, and looks like the last one, but another development there, that trough southeast of Kodiak Island, and then kind of where the front tends to bend there. Probably another system will develop there. Otherwise, today in the interior, not too bad. Basically dry, variably cloudy. Some areas of clearing, and precipitation pretty limited and sparse. Some light snow showers up over the Arctic coastal areas with less wind than what you saw yesterday. But gusts up to about 35 miles an hour at Cape Lisburne. And I mentioned Dead Horse seeing 30 miles an hour. So that was down from what you saw yesterday and overnight last night. And moving on to tonight's forecast, low pressure continues there just south of Prince William Sound, so another weak frontal system develops, and I'll bring an increase in the rain once again into the Panhandle. Continued southwest flow both at the surface and aloft, but again, amounts will be lighter than what they have been, but still pretty continuous there. Winds not much of a problem, maybe 25 gusts, 35 miles an hour, and that's about it. Winds diminish over the Alaska Peninsula with showers as the flow becomes more westerly. And that'll keep the snowfall levels from getting too much lower than what they are. In fact, they'll probably rise up a little bit like the Pribilofs, and you'll go back into just a rain pattern there, or a shower pattern. But St. Lawrence Island, any precipitation falling in the form of snow there, as well as the southwest interior looking pretty snowy, but it'll be quite light amounts there, maybe nothing more than an inch or half an inch at most. And the central eastern interior, basically dry. Lingering snow showers up over the Yukon Flats, just a chance of. Copper River Basin, chance of rain or snow showers, again, depending on your elevation, time of night. And continued periods of flurries and low clouds for the Arctic coast, with winds continuing to come down from what they were today, especially late tonight, and probably lose advisory by tomorrow morning. And the outlook for Thursday, still east-northeast flow and flurries, low clouds, maybe some fog for the eastern Arctic coast, maybe into the North Slope, and just right along or off the west side there of that offshore flow. And that should result, downsloping off the DeLong Mountains, should result in some clearing again for the Noatak Valley, Red Dog, Kivalina, maybe even Kotzebue. Should stay dry, though, over in the northwest interior. Again, still a chance of snow showers up over the Yukon Flats, but again, whatever falls will be quite light. Still some scattered snow showers, Kuskokwim Valley into the Kuskokwim Mountains on out toward St. Michael. And then the southwest coast, most of the action staying over the eastern Bering Sea, with that low center moving up just north of the Alaska Peninsula, or right over the Alaska Peninsula, give or take there. It's still going to have a pretty tight gradient over the eastern Aleutians, gale force north and northwest winds there, with periods of rain and showers for the Pribilofs, with windy conditions, but not quite as windy as over the eastern Aleutians. And winds will continue to diminish as you head north. You'll get into the colder air, so looking at snow showers, St. Lawrence Island, back to the Bering Strait. Tin City could pick up another inch of snow like you had today up that way. But a place like King Salmon, we had 3/10 of an inch of precipitation today. Probably be dry tomorrow, just some showers over the Aleutian Range. Risk of a shower over southwest Kodiak Island, otherwise dry, maybe some sun breaks. And low pressure just south of Prince William Sound. Look for, again, another round of rain with that frontal boundary pushing into the Panhandle, but just occasional light rain. Wind's not much of a problem. Heaviest rain and wind now will be associated with that low west of the Queen Charlotte, so I'll be from Dixon entrance southward now, with less action up to the north. Interior basically dry. Next week's system still out over the far western Bering, and we'll see on Friday that deepens considerably, tightens the gradient up. 971 millibar and low moving north of the Komodorskis. A front pushes across the Shemiatu area early on and then pushes in toward Adak during the afternoon. Looks like most of the wind will be to the north of the Aleutians in the western Bering Sea there, and ridging ahead of that system promises some sun breaks for the Pribilofs and maybe even St. Lawrence Island as that northwest wind flow weakens and shifts eastward. So look for some cloudy skies, scattered snow showers along the southwest coast into the Kuskokwim Valley. A little bit into the Kuskokwim Valley, more so for the Kuskokwim Delta, Yukon Delta, Seward Peninsula, flurries, Arctic coast, same pattern there, except winds really lightening up now up there with high pressure building over the north slope, weak high pressure at the surface. Also some clearing possible western interior, snow shower chances over the central interior down into the northern Kuskokwim Valley, and a chance of rain or snow showers south central Alaska both Thursday night through Friday, and the North Gulf Coast as well into the northern Panhandle, Incline Glacier Bay, especially up toward White Pass, would see the best chance of some light snow. Probably staying rain down toward Haines, of course, into Juneau, with chance of showers now. So drying out, still some showers in the forecast for the southeast coast, but winds will be light, and definitely rainfall amounts will be more scattered and definitely a lot lighter. System southeast of Kodiak Islands, kind of off by itself there, just bringing a risk of a shower to the east side of the island, and staying south of even Middleton Island in the North Gulf Coast. Looking at lows tonight in the lower 40s for the Panhandle and lower 30s, 30-35 Kenai Peninsula, Manuska Valley, probably around 30, upper 20s to Sitna Valley, upper 30s Kodiak Island, upper 20s, lower 30s Bristol Bay, and in the mid to upper 20s for the Kuskokwim Valley, mid 20s Copper River Basin. And highs in the 40s, most areas, 30s over the inland areas, followed by lows in the 20s to lower 30s, milder over the Panhandle and above freezing. And then highs mid-40s Kodiak Island, 40 to 45 south central Alaska, mid-upper 40s southeast Alaska, up to the north, lows 5 to 15. And that's all I've got time for.
And now, aviation weather around Alaska.
Moving on to flying weather, first graphic showing a lot of IFR from the Brooks Range on out to the central eastern Arctic coast, marginal VFR western Arctic coast, and actually Point Barrow on down to Cape Lisburne. VFR, Noatak Valley, northwest coast, Kotzebue, Selawik, Kobuk Valley, and on down to the Yukon River there, and then IFR over the lower Yukon River, Kuskokwim Valley, eastward into Cook Inlet, Kenai Peninsula, Prince William Sound, North Gulf Coast and the Coast Range, Yakutat, Northern Panhandle, and over toward the border with VFR, Kodiak Island, marginal for Fognak Island, Bristol Bay, Alaska Peninsula. All the Aleutians, except Shemya, or Attu, becomes VFR out there, but marginal elsewhere. Band of IFR just exiting the Pribilofs. And for the afternoon, let's see, that area goes to, whoa, I jumped a little too far forward there. That area goes to, let me back it up, to, there we go, Thursday afternoon. Got some VFR out over the central Aleutians now, surrounded by marginal VFR, and IFR Alaska Peninsula, and across the lower Yukon Valley, northern Kuskokwim Valley, across the lower Yukon River, to St. Lawrence Island, IFR, Arctic Coast North Slope, and areas of the northeast interior and the North Gulf Coast, Cook Inlet, Matanuska, eastern Susitna Valley, Talkeetnas, most of the Kenai Peninsula, Prince William Sound, North Gulf Coast, into the Lincoln Glacier Bay area, and actually most of the Panhandle, IFR, Gulf of Alaska, marginal. And for the day on Friday morning, there we go, IFR, North Slope, Eastern Arctic Coast, south of the Brooks Range, we've got a zone of VFR, and then down toward the Yukon River, pick up the marginal VFR, and south side of the Alaska Range, we've got IFR down to the Talkeetnas, Cook Inlet, VFR, Bristol Bay VFR, good portion of the, Atka to the Fox Islands and False Pass look pretty good. VFR, St. George Island, VFR, but St. Paul marginal. Kodiak marginal, southeast coast, kind of a mix between marginal and IFR, as well as the North Gulf Coast. And for the afternoon, North Gulf Coast, Prince William Sound, Matanuska Valley, or Turnagain Arm anyway, and the Chugach and Girdwood, all IFR to Yakutat, and Haines, the Skagway IFR, and remainder of the southeast coast marginal. IFR, central interior. Back to the west, northwest, VFR, and then North Slope Arctic Coast, IFR. Western Bering Sea there, Western Aleutians, IFR, marginal, right up to the southwest coast. And passes Anatuvik, IFR becoming marginal. Same trend for Adigan, IFR early, possibly becoming marginal in the afternoon. Lake Clark and Merrill, marginal VFR, same for Rainy, marginal VFR, windy, marginal. And Isabel also marginal. Mintasta marginal VFR, probably VFR for the northern entrance into the valley there. And Tanita looks pretty much, or occasional IFR times tomorrow, Thursday, Portage, IFR, Chilkoot and White, IFR. Looking at the freezing levels at the surface, just north of St. Lawrence Island and hugging the coastline right in across the northern panhandle, 2,000 feet, eastern North Gulf Coast, Lincoln Glacier Bay, but north of the Aleutians, and the icing. Look for considerable moderate moving into the southern and southeast part of the panhandle, and to a lesser extent along the North Gulf Coast, and then icing free in the interior, but the Arctic coast and the northern Bering Sea, Alaska Peninsula, eastern Aleutians has a chance of some isolated moderate icing of rime or mixed varieties. Jet stream, northwest jet across the western Bering Sea, down across Atka Island, about 135 knots. And otherwise, south of the area, just clipping the southern panhandle due to upper low pressure, basically dominating interior Alaska and the northern Bering Sea and the Northwest Territories. 9,000 feet, same pattern with northerlies, 35 to 50 knots across the Bering Sea down to the Aleutians, southwest 35 to 45 in across the southern panhandle, and at 3,000 feet, low pressure right over northern Kenai Peninsula there. So we got westerly winds 35 to 40 knots from Kodiak Island in across the Gulf of Alaska, up to 50 knots. Dixon entrance, northerlies 25 knots north of the Bering Strait, pick up to about 35 near the Pribilofs, 40 near Atka Island. Turbulence-wise, look for considerable moderate chop, especially for small aircraft, Alaska Peninsula, eastern Aleutians to Adak, and then a band extending north across the Pribilof, St. Lawrence Island, the Bering Strait, and the western Arctic coast. Otherwise, pretty smooth over the interior, southwest Kodiak Island, light to isolated moderate chop, same thing for the southern panhandle.
On March 11, 2011, a 9.0 magnitude earthquake off the Pacific coast of Japan generated a tsunami. This series of ocean waves sped towards the island nation, with waves reaching 24 feet high. The result was devastation and utter destruction. Towns were engulfed by water and swept away. Farmland was flooded. Tens of thousands of lives were lost. The National Police Agency reported damages to hundreds of roads, bridges, and more than 100,000 buildings. The surging water flooded rivers and destroyed harbors. In some areas along the coast, tsunami waves reached 6 miles inland. Tsunamis not only cause severe damage when they first strike land, but also as the water recedes back to sea. Tsunamis can inflict this type of damage because of some unique features. As tsunami waves travel across ocean basins, they may be as little as a few centimeters high, but they extend down to the ocean floor. This is different than traditional waves, which are only surface features. Tsunamis can also travel hundreds of miles per hour in the open ocean. As these waves approach a coast, the shallowing ocean floor slows the waves down and pushes the water mass upwards. The quicker the ocean floor transitions from deep to shallow, the greater potential for a higher wave height. So, tsunamis that experience this sudden shift into shallow water can have the height and momentum to pack a serious punch. Unfortunately, Japan found itself in this scenario. This image shows how abruptly the Japanese islands rise out of the ocean. Other coastal areas in the region have much more gradual slopes. The earthquake on March 11th was the most powerful known to hit Japan, and the tsunami it created had the necessary ingredients to make it such a deadly and destructive force. "80 miles east of Japan, a 9.0 magnitude earthquake rocks the ocean floor. This disturbance causes a transfer of energy from the seafloor to the ocean, generating a series of ocean waves, known as a tsunami. In about 20 minutes, waves strike the Japanese coastline. Other nations go on high alert because the tsunami will propagate or spread throughout the Pacific Ocean. As the tsunami radiates outward from Japan, it encounters a variety of ocean features, such as ridges and underwater volcanoes, which guide the tsunami and create a complex pattern of scattering and reflective waves. In 8 hours, the waves reach the Hawaiian Islands, and in 9.5 hours, they hit the west coast of the United States. In 16 hours, the tsunami reaches the Indian Ocean and New Zealand, and by 22 hours, the entire Pacific Ocean had been affected. The impact of a tsunami can be highly variable because of the complicated interactions with ocean features and coastline elements. Wave height and speed will differ from place to place. Since tsunamis can be hundreds of miles long and travel thousands of miles away from where they originated, they are considered a worldwide threat when they form. These are the sounds of a tsunami warning. They alert residents that a killer wave is about to strike. These sirens, however, are just a small part of the sophisticated warning systems that played a role in Japan and in the US during the Pacific Ocean tsunami in March 2011. Most tsunamis are generated by an undersea earthquake. Fortunately, Japan has one of the most advanced earthquake early warning systems in the world. It detects tremors, calculates the epicenter, and sends out warnings from over 1,000 seismographs scattered throughout the country. The Japan Meteorological Agency issues the warnings and sends alerts to television and radio channels, the internet, and mobile phone networks. When the earthquake struck 80 miles offshore, warnings were generated in about 3 seconds. The tsunami warnings came 3 minutes later. These take longer because more complex calculations are involved and must factor in ocean data. Since the first tsunami wave struck the coastline within 20 minutes, the advanced warning provided some residents with crucial minutes to reach a safe area. While the earthquake sent powerful tsunami waves westward toward Japan, the tsunami also propagated east into the Pacific Ocean. Here, warnings are issued by the Pacific Tsunami Warning Center, operated by NOAA in Hawaii. NOAA maintains a large network of buoys with ocean floor sensors that are strategically positioned in the earthquake-prone zones of the Pacific. This system collects vital ocean data for tsunami forecasting. On March 11th, only 25 minutes after the earthquake struck, the first buoy station measured the tsunami and relayed information to Hawaii. Scientists used this data to run models and issue forecasts and warnings to nations throughout the Pacific. From there, local emergency managers decided what actions were appropriate to take for public safety. The earthquake and resulting tsunami devastated the Japanese coastline, causing damage that will take years to repair. While we can't prevent these forces of nature from happening, our early warning systems can help us prepare for the dangers headed our way.
And now, marine weather around Alaska.
Welcome back. Looking at the coastal water forecast, we've got small craft advisories on the south coast of the Panhandle for west winds 30 knots, seas 14 feet. South winds 30 knots for Clarence Strait with 10-foot seas, and then southeast at 20 for Stevens Passage, and back to small craft advisories for Lynn Canal, Glacier Bay, northern inner channels for southerlies at 25 knots. North coast of the Panhandle looking at south to southwest winds at 20 knots. Moving on to the day for Friday, we've got southeast winds 15 to 20 knots, 12-foot seas on the north coast, 20 to 25 knots southeast winds on the south coast. Central southern inside waters, south to southeast breeze at 15 knots, 3 to 4-foot seas, and southeast at 10 for Lynn Canal. Prince William Sound tomorrow, northeast at 20 knots, 4-foot seas. Small craft advisories for the North Gulf Coast and the Barren Islands for west-southwest winds at 30 knots, seas around 10 feet. Small craft advisories for Kamishak Bay, west winds 25 knots with 8-foot seas. Southern Cook Inlet, northwesterlies at 20, and Northern Cook Inlet, north at 10. Outlook for Friday, Prince William Sound, northeast at 15, Northern Cook Inlet, north at 15, south of the Foreland Zone, north at 20 with 4-foot seas. Small craft advisories, Kamishak Bay, northwest winds at 30 knots, 8-foot seas, north at 25 for the Barren Islands. Southeast winds for the eastern North Gulf Coast at 25 knots with 7-foot seas, otherwise northeast on the western North Gulf Coast, northeast at 20, seas at about 6 feet. Kodiak Island, west winds 25 to 30 knots, strong enough for small craft advisory, seas 6 to 11 feet, and 30-knot winds from Sitkinak to Cape Sarachev with seas at 12 feet, and southwest 30-knot winds on the Bering Sea side of the Alaska Peninsula. Bristol Bay, small craft advisories for west winds at 25 knots. And for Friday, Alaska Peninsula northwest winds 30 knots, 15-foot seas. 30-knot northwest winds from Castle Cape to Sitkinak and up the east side of Kodiak Island with 9 to 13-foot seas. Northwest 25 for Bristol Bay. And for the Unalaska Island area, look for gale warnings, west winds 40 to 45 knots. Storm warnings for Unmak Island, west winds 45 to 50 knots. Adak and Atka, westerlies 40 to 50 knots with seas 15 to 17 feet. Gale warnings, Amchitka Island, west winds 35 knots. Small craft advisories from Shimia to Kiska for west winds at 25. And for Friday, pretty uniform wind pattern for the western central Aleutians. South at 40 knots from Shimia to Atka, seas running 13 to 18 feet. And for Unalaska Island, west winds 30 to 35 knots, but good gales for Unmak Island for southwest winds at 40 knots, seas as high as 14 feet. Southwest coast, north to northwest winds 20 knots, 6 to 7-foot seas. Small craft advisories for the Pribilof, St. Paul, St. George, northwest at 30 knots. St. Matthew Island, northerlies 25 knots. Same forecast for St. Lawrence Island, north winds 25 knots. Norton Sound much lighter with a northeast breeze at 10. And for Friday, north 10 for Norton Sound, but small craft advisory, St. Lawrence Island, and the southwest coast for St. Lawrence Island, north at 25 knots, southwest coast, northwest 25 to 30 knots. Gale warnings for the Pribilof, southwest at 35 knots. On the other side of the low, winds will be northeast, just under storm force for St. Matthew Island in the northern Bering Sea, northeast at 45 knots with 13-foot seas. And for the Arctic coast, mostly east winds, the entire stretch of the coastline there at about 25 knots or east-northeast, seas at about 6 feet. 8-foot seas from Cape Beaufort all the way down to Wales, along with a northeast wind at 25 knots. And the outlook for Friday, Wales to Cape Thompson, north winds 25 knots. Cape Thompson to Cape Beaufort, northeast at 20. East winds 20 knots. Western Arctic coast, central coast, small craft advisories, northeast winds at 25, seas 6 feet. And then winds diminish as you head east, coming down to 20 knots from the northeast, and then 15 knots as you get over toward demarcation point. For tonight, fog, flurries, low clouds, likely along especially the central and eastern Arctic coast, with diminishing winds continuing to diminish there. And for the southwest interior, snow showers, mostly cloudy skies, mixture of rain or snow, Pribilofs into Togiak Bay, Bristol Bay, and rain for the Alaska Peninsula, periods of. Same thing for the central Aleutians, couple of weak troughs. Another system develops and pushes more rain into the panhandle. And then for Thursday, a low develops off the Queen Charlotte Islands. I'll produce the heaviest wind and rain for Thursday down in that area from Dixon Entrance southward, with lighter amounts up over the panhandle. Dry more or less over the central interior, and no change for the Arctic coast. A pretty strong low north of the Alaska Peninsula produces gusty winds for the eastern Aleutians and the Pribilofs, replaced by high pressure on Friday.
These forecasts are for planning purposes only. Call 1-800-WX-BRIEF for a formal pre-flight briefing. Always file a flight plan before you go flying. The U.S. Coast Guard Auxiliary urges you to leave a float plan with a friend or the harbor master before you go boating.